Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulihi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsani ila yawmiddin. Alhamdulillah. We'd like to welcome you all to tonight's rendition of the Black Imams Roundtable. Alhamdulillah, I'm Imam Faheem, your Imam of the Boom Bat means just that, the return of the real hard deen and real rap. You know, I have next to me on my side, Imam Amin Muhammad of Masjid Muhammad of Atlantic City, and below me on the screen, just the screen only, but he's above us in status and ingenuity and innovation and, you know, all of those great titles that we could spend a whole podcast talking about it. Imam Genius, Imam Naeem Abdullah of Masjid Mukmin of Pittsburgh, alhamdulillah. So we'd like to welcome you all to tonight's podcast. Thank you for joining us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. May he make this a beneficial gathering for us, and may he accept it from us and forgive us for any shortcomings. Amin. So before we begin, inshallah, you know, we request that you all make the donation, inshallah, that we request, at least $10 per person to help us reach our weekly goal, inshallah ta'ala. And so we trying to, in the world of rising costs, we're trying to keep it minimal, you know what I mean? Because we can, you know, we do reserve the right to raise the price like everybody else, but we're trying to keep it easy for our people. And so please try to make that donation. Let's try to hit that goal early, inshallah. Also, be sure to share this on your platforms so other people can join in, inshallah, and get the benefit. And just real quick, I wanted to say something. You know, I think we should realize, you know, when we request donations, I don't know if people realize the easy job that they have when all they have to do is just give. You know, I don't know if people realize how easy that is to just give and, you know, give from your surplus, and then you're done with it. It goes on your scale and it comes back to you in many ways. And, you know, now the responsibility falls on people who have to take that money or take those things that we give for communities and make something happen. And that is a difficult task, you know. I say this often. I wish I could just donate and just be gone with it. You know what I'm saying? I wish I could just be solicited for funds and meet a goal and then be done with it. You know what I mean? But mashallah. So it is a big, it's an important thing for us. So when you all contribute, inshallah, it really helps us out. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to double and multiply your wealth and increase your reward. Amin. All right, so tonight's topic, we're talking about, you know, developing our own scholarship and our own circles of knowledge, and what that looks like for us as a people. And when we say as a people, I mean, we shouldn't have to be repeating this, but we're not talking about as a people as like a nationalist group or a separatist group. We're talking about people who are Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah and who are African Americans or Black folk in this country of the lost found wilderness of North America. You know what I mean? So, and because of the dynamics that we're under and the circumstances that we've been subjected to, we are a special people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the opportunity to practice Islam. You know, and we have special needs. We have special obligations. We have so many things that we have to take care of as a people. So nobody should think, you know, that it's just we're talking about this black thing, because, you know, it's you know, our brothers. I heard Imam Sarah say something recently. May Allah preserve him. He said, you know, that black folks, they are people, but the Muslims are our brothers. You know what I mean? You know, so we talk about our people. We talk about you know, black people in America, but then we also have a preference for black folk in America who are Muslims, and our love and our concern is for the Muslims overall, black, white, red, or whatever. So no one should ever forget that, inshallah, because the real bond is La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the special bond is us being black just based on that, you know. And so we have a lot of things that we have to conquer. You know, we've been marginalized, we've been deprived, you know, so many things. And that can be a talk in and of itself that we will revisit sooner or later, inshallah. But we want to talk about developing our own scholarship and our circles of knowledge and what that looks like for us and what are some of the practical steps that we need to do, because it is something that is imperative for us to accomplish. It is something as we're going forward as an ummah of people in this country who in many cases have been deprived proper Islamic scholarship or got some type of scholarship and then a scholarship that made us forget about who we were as a people and our experiences and our cultures and our societal norms that are exclusive to us in this country, just like it is with anywhere else. You know, if you go to another country, if it's a Muslim country, but if they're Chinese, if they're Spanish, or whatever their ethnic background, they have a culture that is unique for them. And, you know, but somehow it seems that when it comes to us, you know, it's got to be like we're supposed to just be assimilating to everybody else's culture while forgetting who we are. And then when we assert the right to, you know, proclaim who we are as a people and our proudness for being Muslims and our proudness for being Black people in America, somehow it people read it as, you know, being like separatists. But on the topic of we're talking about tonight, that it is very important. We have these foundations of scholarship because it takes us to teach us, you know, because we know who we are. You know, nobody's going to be able to deal with us like us, you know. And I had I'll save it for later, inshallah. So that's my open, inshallah. So we hope you all, as you're tuning in and logging on, you know, please make sure to make that donation. And I'll turn it over to Imam Naeem Abdullah, inshallah ta'ala.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa afdalu salat wa atamu taslim ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een, wa radiyallahu ta'ala an sadat tabi'een, wa ulama al-amalin, wa a'immat al-arbat al-mujtahideen, wa muqalidihim ila yawmiddin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Alhamdulillah. Before I begin my introduction, I want to remind all of you to not only donate to our cause, we do this every week, at least $10, but also share. Many times if you look at me when we open the Roundtable every week, if I'm not the one opening up, you see me looking down doing something. What you see me doing is making my donation and sharing the video. That's what you see me doing. So I really would encourage you all to do the same thing when you first come on. And I do this with all of our sessions. When Imam Amin is teaching and I'm there live watching in the class, first thing I do before I even get to the video, once I get the notification, I press like, and then I share it, and then I come into class. And so we should get in this habit of doing so. And don't make us have to get like YouTubers. You know, YouTubers, they have super chat. If you spend time on YouTube, you know the super chat is you see the one who's doing the YouTube video, the one who's doing the video, he'll put a comment on the screen, right? And it'll have a dollar amount next to it. And this is what they do. Like when they're interacting with people, they only comment, they only engage really with the people who's giving money. So if you give money, then yeah, we'll put your comment on the screen and we'll engage you. But if you just talking, we just not gonna really pay no attention to you. Don't make us be like YouTubers. Alhamdulillah. So today we want to talk about developing our own scholarship and circles of knowledge, and basically how that thing looks. And I want to, in my opening, mention a few things. First and foremost, that seeking beneficial knowledge, seeking knowledge is an obligation. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Talibul ilmi faridatun ala kulli Muslim." If you look at that hadith, if you look at the Arabic, the word for knowledge, ilm, ayn, lam, mim, it has something connected to it in the front. It has alif, lam, al ilm, the knowledge. And so it's ma'arifa, it's a definite noun, the knowledge. So the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is talking about a specific type of knowledge that is an obligation upon every Muslim to seek. And the scholars say that the knowledge that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam was referring to is the individually obligatory knowledge, fardul ayn. So that is the baseline level of knowledge that we should all have. And I like to try to make things simple. You may say, well, what is fard ayn? Well, how do I know what is fard ayn? Real simple. If it's obligatory for you to do it, it's also obligatory upon you to learn how to do that thing properly. So we know when we come into Islam that Muslims, we have a belief system, a belief. So we have to learn what that belief is and make sure it's proper. We have to learn how to pray because we know we have to pray. And even before prayer, we have to know how to properly prepare for prayer. The shurut of salat, the conditions of salat. So now you're talking about different levels of purification. You're talking about all of those things. This is, every Muslim has to know this. And if you want to move ahead a little bit past the 5 pillars, we said if you're going to do it, you have to learn, you have to have knowledge before you do it in order to do it right. So for example, if you're going to get married, you should know how to marry properly. It's not the imam's responsibility, it's your responsibility. You're getting married. You have to know what constitutes a valid marriage, etc., etc., etc. In fact, in the basic Maliki fiqh book, Al-Aqdari, the Imam says in the book, almost in the very beginning, it is not permissible for a person to do a thing unless he knows the hukmullahi fihi, unless he knows the judgment of Allah regarding that thing. So it's not even permissible for you to do something unless you have that level of knowledge first. So this is what we are supposed to know. I want to move a little bit further from that because we're talking about developing our own scholarship and circles of knowledge, our own. So it takes some of us to go out and get the knowledge and bring it back to us, our people. We mentioned the hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, talibul ilm, seeking knowledge. Somebody has to do the talaba. Somebody has to go out and get it. And when they get it, they need to bring it back home to us. So somebody has to get it. They have a saying, "Faqidu shay la yu'ti." One who doesn't have a thing can't give it. So someone has to get the knowledge and bring it back to us. And once someone brings it back to us, we should no longer have the need to go outside of that person that we have amongst us to get that knowledge. We already have someone sitting in front of us who has it. Why are you going to someone else? Many of the big scholars that we name and we talk about, they learned like this. You know, I'm always quoting Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio, rahimahullah. This is how he learned. His first teachers were his parents and his uncles. His brother Abdullah details how they learned. He's a few years younger than his brother. And his first teachers were the Shehu's teachers and the Shehu. They got all of that knowledge in-house, in the family. They got all of that knowledge in-house in the family. What I've seen over the years is that when one of us goes out and gets the knowledge, many of them want to put barriers to transmitting that knowledge. Many people want to put barriers to transmitting that knowledge instead of continuing, passing it on. And one of the things that the Shehu said, because a lot of us have like I'll call it like a Christian-based idea of what scholarship looks like. And so a lot of us have this misconception that I have to have a whole lot of knowledge and I have to myself actually be a scholar before I can even teach. And then we've incorporated the concept of scholar and laity, or the layman, into Islam. And our understanding of what a scholar is and what al-awam is in Islam is not like the Christian understanding of it. So we create a hierarchy, and it is a hierarchy in Islam, but we actually create barriers to scholarship. But it's the Islamic model of teaching doesn't look like that. Sheikh Uthman said in his book, Ihya Sunnah wa Ikhmadul Bid'ah, the revival of the Sunnah and the destruction of innovation, something very similar to what I hear Imam Amin always quoting from Imam Haddad. And your wife is on it. She's going to put it there in English right before I say it. The Sheikh said, وَكُلُّ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ مَسْأَلَةً وَاحِدَةً فَهُوَ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْعِلْمِ بِهَا فَعَلَيْهِ أَنْ يَعْرَفَهَا إِنْ كَانَتْ مِنْ فُرُوضِ الْأَعْيَانِ وَإِلَّا كَانَ شَرِيكًا لَهُ فِي الْإِثْمِ. He said, whoever has learned a single issue, a single case, is one of the learned ones in it. Thus, it is obligatory upon him to teach it to others, if it is one of the individual obligations that we just mentioned. Otherwise, he will have the share of the sin. See, there's a sin attached with not transmitting what you know. See, once one of us goes out and gets the knowledge, we have to transmit it to people around us in our circles. And part of the thing that prevents us from doing this is that many of our people have an aversion to knowledge. You know, before we got on today, you know what I was thinking about? Even Faheem could probably relate to this. Remember that movie, The Warriors?
Yeah.
Remember, for those who don't know, there's an old movie that came out, I think, in the 70s or the 80s, right? And they had you had like an old school gang culture in New York, right? And so they had this big gang meeting. They was trying to come together and unite it. And somebody made it go haywire. So you had this gang from Coney Island, Brooklyn, way up in the Bronx, and they were framed for killing the leader, the one who tried to bring all the gangs together, right? So every gang in New York City is trying to catch this gang and kill him while they take the subways and stuff back to Brooklyn, right? And so they even had the radio program, taunting them. And this is what made me think about. They kept playing the song, nowhere to run to, nowhere to hide, right? You know why I thought about that? Because we have an aversion to knowledge, right? And we be trying to run and hide from knowledge and trying to find all types of excuses not to get the beneficial knowledge. And so we want to play the song, nowhere to run to, nowhere to hide. You got to get this knowledge, brother. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The first thing that was revealed to the messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was Iqra, read. Our deen is based on seeking basic knowledge. How are you going to be Muslim and have an aversion to knowledge? It's like oil and water. It doesn't mix. So sing it.
Can you dig it?
So this is one of the things that prevents us from doing that. Is I think it's our environment and stuff like this that gives us an adverse reaction, a dislike of seeking knowledge. We literally run from it. Literally, we prefer to be entertained in the guise of seeking knowledge rather than seeking knowledge. So one more thing in conclusion of my introduction, I want to give some imagery on what this could look like as far as seeking knowledge, right? How does it look? When I first became Muslim, I was incarcerated in Rikers Island. And during those days, if you understand Rikers Island is literally an island with about a dozen separate jails on the island. And every jail had a room that we would call a Masjid, where Juma would take place and classes would take place. So when I first became Muslim, you were able to go out a few times a week to the Masjid. And when you got to the Masjid, after, giving salams and, basic small talk, right? We would split up into circles, right? You may had a circle for learning the Aqidah, another circle for learning Sirah, another circle for learning your Salat, another circle, Wahhabi Aqidah. We didn't know it at the time, but that's what we was learning, right? Mubadi Islam, authored by Sheikhul Islam. I forgot I keep forgetting the name he went by, but it was Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahab. Anyway, and there'll be an Arabic circle. So based upon where you were in your development, that would determine what circle you were allowed to sit in for class. So if you were a new Muslim, you would be in the Aqidah or belief class and in the Salat class. So maybe if we were there for 2 hours, you may spend maybe part of your time in the belief section, in the belief circle, and then you would slide over to the Salat circle, where you would learn how to pray properly. When you look at traditional Islamic settings, you see something similar to this. For example, you go to the Quran schools and you see all the children and everybody sitting in separate circles, memorizing what they're memorizing, and the teachers walk into the circles and correcting people and things like this. Our masajid in our houses should look like this. Everybody's sitting on in circles based upon their level, getting taught by their own people who have uh, who have acquired the knowledge that they're learning. So I just wanted to end off by giving you some sort of imagery, because I know a lot of us have a lot of different elaborate ideas how stuff look, but stuff is real simple. This stuff we should be doing in our houses and in our masajid, right? And all it takes is for some of us to teach what we know after our teachers have approved of our knowledge, making sure that we understand what we know properly. So that's my introduction.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. For my opening comments, this topic is very, very important to me because for each people, what they consider scholarship is going to be relative to their reality. Just by default. So for us as a people, African Americans, we have to first define what are we looking for in terms of scholarship. And in order to determine that, we have to determine where we're at as a collective group of people. And then assess our needs and work according to our needs. So from observation, and we should, examine our situation. The majority of our people have never correctly learned Islam. That is a reality, whether we like it or not. It's real. Most of us have never really learned Islam in an organized way that we are sure that this is our deen. So with that in mind, the first thing we should do when we're talking about developing our own scholarship is to determine what we're looking for and what is scholarship to us. And what portion of that scholarship do we need? I watch all the time online, on different things, in conversations, us explain to each other how much we don't understand the deen. And that is not because we're unintelligent. That is because the deen, Islam, the religion, was never explained to us with a methodology, with an understanding, and a traceable connection back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So because of that, we still have this mixture that doesn't allow us to develop anything. So I want to say first, what is scholarship that we need? And that is first, and we say it all the time, you need to learn Islam globally and historically. If you take those two elements of the learning process out, you're going to have an Islam that is not the Islam that's going to produce scholarship, right? So we have to begin to form think tanks among us. I'm talking about before really the process really goes, we need a think tank of people who have some idea or some real knowledge of what is Islam to come together and lay that out for us as a collective people. Once we do that, then we can start the process of disseminating the methodology of learning across our communities in an organized manner. I think about this a lot. Because if we continue in the methodology that we've been learning, we're going to get the same result that we have today. So we have to establish a methodology. If you go to every country in the world, especially prior to the Saudi innovations around the world, prior to that, in every country, you saw a methodology in that country. They had a certain way of believing, a certain way of practicing, a certain set of spirituality. They established schools, they established all those things. Right? We have to establish the same thing. And Sunni Islam has that structure. It is solid all around the world, globally and historically. We have to learn that system. So that's my opening point. I'm trying to process how to simplify what we need to do. And once we do that part and fully understand it, we can begin the process. So let me ask a question quickly that will give me my next thoughts. Does everyone, and I would like an answer, please. Does everyone understand well the format of the Sunni methodology? So as Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, do we understand well the format? And it's our thoughts that I understand the Sunni methodology and format and structure very well. Even if you don't know all the knowledge, but you understand the structure. Can I get some? I do. I don't. I want to like assess. Mhm. There's way more people. I want you to answer, inshallah. Seriously, I'm trying to assess. Okay. All right. MashaAllah. Okay. That's a nice body of people. So I want to ask quickly one follow-up question, and you can take your time and type it. Well, I want you to think of it. In Aqidah, fiqh, and spirituality, what does that look like? And that's my last question. So, because that's the foundations of the religion. In Aqidah, fiqh, and spirituality, what does that look like? What's that structure look like? I want to engage you. That's why I like live, because live people can talk. I hope they come up with a platform that's just as good as this so that we all can be on it and we can actually talk. That has the same facilities like this.
We need something like Hollywood Squares.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, while they put it up, that's my opening, because I want to know we're on the same page. It's easier to talk when we're all on the same page. MashaAllah. That's what I want. That's what y'all answering. That's what I meant by foundations. Right? Y'all do understand. Good. Okay. Go ahead. Yeah, Imam. I'm going to stop there. I'll come back later with my other thoughts.
Yeah, I was having an interesting conversation with some brothers, right? And we were talking about the Nation of Islam and some startling revelations. There was a video, some of you may have seen it, and it was an interview. I forget what station it was on, but it was with Imam Wafiddin Muhammad Rahimahullah and Minister Farrakhan. And you might have seen it when he was saying that Imam Wafiddin was saying that that Fard Muhammad had never called himself Allah. You know, and then someone had pointed it out that if you look at his writings and stuff like that, that he never referred to himself as Allah, and that he actually like repented before he passed away, or supposedly passed away. But in the interview, Imam Wafiddin had his you know, he was always kind of like the outcast in the family, you know, going back and forth in the nation and getting kicked out because he would challenge his father. And he was saying that his father told him that he had to leave the house, that he was like banned, he wasn't gonna be able to talk to his mom. And so his mom was kind of pleading on his behalf. She was like, you know, just go in there and you know, just agree with your dad, you know, so we can. And he was like, you know, you want me to agree to something I don't believe in? And then he asked her, did she believe that, stuff? And she said no. And he was saying, according to what she said, that Fard Muhammad denied all of that stuff, and then Elijah Muhammad, I think in that video or somewhere else, that is reported that Imam Warfdeen had he said when one of the first people he gave shahada to was his father. One of the first people that he gave his shahada to was his father. And some of you who ever followed the nation, you know that there was always some things about Elijah Muhammad denouncing some of those things and stuff like that. But the reason I'm saying all that, I mean, this is something that we can explore, maybe having a detailed conversation later. But if you remember Imam Warfdeen Muhammad, when he took over the nation in 1975, 1976, something like that. And he was responsible for bringing them over to Sunni Islam. And so one of the narratives is that they always knew the truth, but they didn't want their people to be infiltrated. So they felt like they had to do baby steps. So they had to do all of these kind of things, right? And Imam Warfdeen Muhammad, I remember there used to be talk about, some of I remember the Wahhabis used to say this, that he was trying to invent a fifth madhab, right? You ever heard this before? That Imam Warfdeen Muhammad was trying to invent a fifth madhab. And, being a default Wahhabi, this was like early 90s, mid 90s. Yeah, I was like, man, that is absurd, not knowing the context, right? But what Imam Warfdeen Muhammad, and probably is a carryover from what his father was trying to do, at least on some level, is that they were trying to develop our own scholarship, which is for us, by us. Because, even Elijah Muhammad, from what I'm talking to some colleagues and brothers, they were saying that whole thing that, Allah in person, Fard Muhammad wa Yada Billah is Allah in person, that's not a doctrine that Fard Muhammad taught. That came from Elijah Muhammad, and many people attested to that they never heard him say that he was Allah or that he promoted that kind of stuff. And then in that interview, Imam Warfdeen said, when people were trying to call him a prophet, he was like adamant, don't call me, you can't call me that, so those kind of things. But even though they were promoting this doctrine and some of the other, crazy notions that came from other movements, like, the mothership and all that kind of stuff, right? They were trying to, Elijah Muhammad sent Imam Warfdeen over to study, traditional Islam. And then he had his son Akbar, the youngest one, he went to Al-Azhar and he was very fluent in Arabic, and they had some teachers that come out of the Warfdeen community. But one of the things that Imam Warfdeen Muhammad, from what I understand, Rahimahullah, is that they were trying to keep the Islamic scholarship exclusive to us for people who knew our situations, for people who could relate to us, and be able to teach us according to what we understand and how we operate in the society that we live in. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, we are very special people in our circumstances and our conditions here in North America. And so there has to be a special type of scholarship that is for us, because, as when we talk about develop our own scholarship, we need the kind of people who go and get the knowledge, or even here and get the knowledge, right? And then knowing how to relate it to our people according to their circumstances, know how to get the, go get the brothers in the streets and the people that's, out and about, and, Imam Amin was mentioning this before, like when he was with the Ansars, like, that whole concept as well, going to the clubs, going to the bars and going to people and meeting them where they're at, that was some prolific kind of da'wah, even if it was in the wrong direction, right? But this whole concept about us taking care of us, now with us being blessed with the true Islam and knowing what Ahlus Sunnah entails, knowing that it's Ashari and Maturidi and Creed, and that it's one of the four madhabs in fiqh, Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi, and Hanabila. and then one of the spiritual paths, you know, and putting that together and putting it in a package that we go to people, then also developing people who have this balance of deen and then knowing how to deal with black folk, you know, not just people who are already Muslim, but giving da'wah and trying to save souls out there who don't really know their way. You know, I mean, even with all of the knowledge that we've learned so far, and as long as Islam has been here, you know, there's still people that equate it's true Islam with the Nation of Islam. You know, there's still people that think, you know, that we're the same, you know, that kind of stuff like that. So our own scholarship and circles of knowledge has to look like, you know, we are developing people who is going to carry this, you know, for years and years to come, and also be ready to, you know, for this shift, for this paradigm shift that we're facing now, because, you know, the Wahhabi movement is kind of dying down. You know, they had a run, but they weren't had any kind of solid foundation. And one of the things that also happened is that they were never challenged. It seemed like that they had the they was up, you know, they was up with the knowledge that they had, and a lot of people didn't counter them. But now in these times where a lot of people who didn't go through that Saudi route or go through that Wahhabi route, and they're coming back and they're teaching and they're open and they're vocal and they're articulate and they can counter that stuff. So it's starting to be a turnaround, and more of us have to adapt to this traditional way, the same way some of those people have followed that, and still, even to this day, they will remain in ignorance, because, you know, our own outlook of what scholarship looks like with our people is going to be something very explicit and very, you know, it's going to be a difficult journey, but we need it, because we need to carry this legacy of Imam Wardi Muhammad and the other ones who took the brunt of responsibility of taking care of our people. And you know, you all know, you know how difficult it is to really try to go to bat for our people, try to establish these things for people who sometimes don't even seem to care about themselves. That if you didn't have the kind of resolve that you had, they wouldn't mind if you gave up. You know, they wouldn't mind if you just earned your own and did. That's cool with them. Like, not seeing a bigger picture, not seeing the vision, not just really following and just having trust, and, you know, seeing, you know, not wanting to commit their kids because, you know, somebody's worrying about, you know, if all this nonsense that we have, you know what I mean? Like, because what it looks like is we're going to have to take children that we're going to have to sacrifice, you know, that we're going to have to get them young, you know, get them in a traditional way where they learn the Quran by 10, you know, and then they learn all of the other sciences, and by the time they're 18 and 19, they're already well established. And then we get in a 40, 50-year run of teaching. Then that turns into other teachers, and that turns into institutions that we pass around the country. And all around the country, we got, you know, African-American, you know, children, boys and girls, even adults, who are well-versed in what they're supposed to know, and they are comfortable in teaching it. And this is another thing that we have to what's going to be different from us as opposed to those other movements, that our scholarship and our circles of knowledge has to be this concept of each one teach one. You know, if you know a simple book like the books that we've been through, the Salatul Jamia or Sulam ila Tawfiq, you know, teach those books. You know, if you're not confident, then you always have reference material you can go back. You have live people that you can ask. Just go through the books, make sure someone knows and they understand it, basic explanations, and then make sure that everybody knows their stuff, because that's how we're going to have to carry it as an ummah. You know what I mean? That you can counter this stuff, because when you learn Fard Ayn according to traditional Sunni Islam, that other stuff don't stand a chance, even on a layman level. And we all laymen. I'm not saying like it's level. We all laymen, right? But even on our levels where we are, the knowledge that you learn in a traditional way and proper Islamic Aqidah and proper fiqh and proper tasawwuf, you know, it goes a long way, because a lot of these people, they don't have it. And not only do they not have it, they don't even know how to get it, because they're stuck in that, you know, that rut, what they call the pure minhaj, you know, and they're having so many problems. So now it's time for us to fill that void. Start young so we can see a 20, 30, 40, 50-year turnaround. Start thinking about when we're going to leave here. Start thinking about our grandchildren, 7 generations down the line, how we prepare, how's it going to look, the Islam in our community where we already, not doing enough to develop ourselves. And then you got other people, they getting funded, they getting all types of stuff, and they have all of these programs. And some of us are inclined to go with them because it's like, like their Islamic ISIS colder, and that's a big problem we dealing with. Like we got to have trust in each other that we're going to take care of each other. No excuses, no matter how difficult it is, no matter how, how broke we might look or how, that we just seem like we just going by and we don't have all of these big names and these big institutions and these fancy buildings and all that. But we do have each other, and all we have to do is really make sure that we are sacrificing each and every one of us. Because if we're doing this work week in and week out, day in and day out, organizing all of these things, connecting all of our people, if it doesn't trickle down to all of us, where the least of us at least has enough to where they can go and grab somebody and teach them the basics of Islam and be confident in it, then, where we're going to go. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and these are things we really got to think about. But when I was having the discussion with the brothers, it was very interesting. And now when you put it in context, some of these things, and you think about had they just promoted the pure Islam because they knew it, or they had some remnants of it, had they just promoted that, had they stopped letting egos and politics and control get in the way, and now look at even with the nation now, with all of the years that they've been here, you still, even in that video, that clip I was telling you about, that Minister Farrakhan even admitted that was the message that Elijah Muhammad left to them, that they had to follow the Quran and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They had to stop quoting the Bible, and then gradually they knew they had to give up all of these beliefs that they were promoting because they were controlled. So what happened to us being how's that statement to go? The cream of the planet Earth, father civilization, all that kind of stuff. You mean to tell me we weren't qualified enough to know this stuff in the 1930s, to know what true Islam was when it was already here, and there was already traditional Sunni Islam here in the black communities. We weren't adept enough to really learn the traditional way. Somebody had to walk us through some type of falsehood for us to get the truth and all of that kind of stuff. Just imagine where we would have been if they would have just put us on with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they would have been the means for us, to really at least a connection to us. You know what I mean? Can you imagine how that would have been now? Subhanallah. So but as we, in retrospect, we look back at it, start connecting this real thing about scholarship and start making these sacrifices. Be ready to, give our children up. We have young children from a young age, started getting them on the Arabic language, making sure they are praying, know how to pray, know the rulings of the prayers and all of those things. And that's what's really the change is going to be, so. But this things about circle now, this stuff is going to be so important for us because, and I know you all recognize it, but we're not the go-to people no more for Islam in the country that is on our backs. It's on our backs for these people to have ease to want to try to be inclined to all these other movements that don't have nothing to do with us. They want to be in politics. They want to assimilate with those other folks. They want to take up the rights of people who are, doing stuff that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is displeased with. But when it comes to us, they want to make us seem like that we're not even qualified. So, that's all I had. There's just, this development on scholarship, as difficult as it's going to be, and the journey that we have ahead, we have to get it done, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. The first 3 and 3453 represents the hadith of Jibreel. The second hadith in Imam an-Nawawi's 40 hadith that we just finished learning. They call that hadith the mother or the foundation of hadith or sunnah. And it's like the template. It's like the blueprint through how you see and organize Islam. When you look at the basic all the way to the advanced books of our scholars, you're going to see that first three. Iman, which is faith, Islam, which is practice, and Ihsan, which is spirituality. And the different titles or names or labels given to the sciences that break down and explain those three different categories. Like with Iman, you have Tawheed, Aqidah, Usuluddin, different labels explaining the body of knowledge that goes into breaking that down. And with Islam practice, you have fiqh, sharia, and with tasawwuf, you have, with ihsan, you have tasawwuf, taskiyat an-nafs, ilmu sir, all indicating that this is inward, spiritual, heart related science. So included with that, there are schools or methodologies or codifications related to each of those categories. In the science of belief, you have, as you all typed, the Ashari and Maturidi schools. As it relates to Islam, our outward practice, you have the four schools: Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi, Hanbali. I'm mentioning this because I think a lot of us don't really get it. We got it, we may be able to name it, but I've tested many of us. The last time I publicly taught the book Umdatul Bayan, written by Sheikh Uthman Danfodio. The book is one of those basic books that has an Aqidah section, a fiqh section, and a Tasawwuf section. And when I began teaching, I did an exercise. After explaining the Hadith of Jibreel and explaining how scholars use that Hadith to categorize Islam and how all of these things fall into a category, I began mentioning random things. And I told the students to put these things in their proper category. I told them at the top of your paper, write Iman or faith and make that a column. I told them to write Islam, then make that a column. Then I told them to write Ihsan and make that a column. Then I started mentioning random things. Then I said, put each one in the right category. So I mentioned things like marriage, conceit, belief in the prophets, just random things related to Islam. Salat, fasting Ramadan, Hajj, belief in heaven and hell, just completely random things. And when I got the papers back, I recognized that even though I explained it, people didn't really get it. Like people would put, like, for example, marriage, they would put it in the Iman or the faith category. conceit, they would put it like in the fit category. So that exercise taught me that a lot of our people, this thing is still a blur to them. It's a blur. They understand, they understand what those words mean, but they don't know how to organize their thoughts in what category that these things fit in. And so this is why, even though Imam Amin mentioned it and Imam Faheem mentioned it, I mentioned it again just to help us know that these things have categories and everything goes in a particular category. Like, for example, and I'm not saying this to make mockery of shit, because that's not the intention. It happened more than once. Someone asked me, well, like I said many times, can you give me a good Maliki book on Akida? That the way that's worded is teaching me that it's a blur to you, these categories. Maliki has to do with fiqh, outward practice. Akida is another category, right? So to this is a blur to a lot of us. And so this is why we have to always repeat these things. And I think it's a blur because most of us, as Imam Amin and Imam Faheem already said, our beginning wasn't proper. Our Islam, a lot of it is based on a lie. It's based on a hustle. It's based on a game that someone ran on us. It's based on a politics. And it doesn't meet the global and historical test that Imam Amin is always talking about. The Islam that a lot of us got in the beginning, if global, it ain't going to work because you're going to only find it in pockets. You ain't going to find most of the Muslims doing or believing what the Islam that we got. Historical is not going to work because you're going to go back 200 plus years and you're not going to find the Islam that most of us got. If I were to ask you all to be honest, right? And I say right now, on the spot, teach me about the proper belief in Islam. What do I have to know right now? No preparation, right now. Some of you won't type it here because you think you'll be ashamed. Some of you would say, see, the first thing you have to understand is that Aqidah is in 3 divisions. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, and Tawheed al-Asma wa Sifat. Some of you would say that. Some of you would say the oneness of Allah's lordship, the oneness of Allah's divinity, and the oneness of his names and attributes. Because this is what we first learned when we became Muslim, a lot of us. But that doesn't meet the test. You go back 300, 400 years, you're not going to find that breakdown, that categorization. In certain fringe groups, you're going to find 1 or 2 of those categories, but you're not going to find that package like that. It doesn't meet the test. It doesn't meet the global nor the historical test. You're not going to find that breakdown and that explanation going back to the Salaf. And you're definitely not going to find it going back to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So one of the reasons why we have a problem is because some of us understand this, but we don't really want to admit that, man, we've been hustled. And some of us, like, if it's just my habit. Every time I make a movie or song reference, I always connect to Imam Faheem, right? The Wire, when the Barksdales was about to go at it with Marlowe, right? What's the dude name? The tall dude that was with Barksdale.
Slim Charles.
Yeah, Slim Charles said, man, if it's a lie, we fight on that lie, right? A lot of people who've been tricked by Wahhabism, that's their position right now. I know this stuff don't go back to the Salaf, right? But I've been standing on this lie, and I'm going to be on this. I'm deaning on this lie right here. I'm not changing. Right?
And that's bad that I get that reference, man. I gotta fix myself.
Right? So back in the days when Comcast changed its name to Xfinity, I saw a commercial. I thought it was hilarious. right? And I think it had to be, the commercial must have been put out by one of their competitors, probably Verizon or something, right? Because, you know, Comcast, they provide, you know, cable TV and internet, whatever, right? So in this commercial, right, the dude is tired of his Comcast service, right? And I looked for this commercial on YouTube for a long time. I couldn't find it, right? It's so funny. And I think it applies to us. So in this commercial, right, this guy, he's tired of his internet service, so he cancels his service. And so the cable guy comes to collect, you know, the cable boxes and the remotes and stuff, right? So the cable guy comes to his door and the guy's like, here, take this stuff. I don't want it no more, right? And you know, the cable guy's going to have the name of the company at Comcast on his shirt and his name, right? So then the commercial said, no, Comcast is now Xfinity, right? So the dude peeled off Comcast and put on Xfinity and rang the doorbell again. It gave the dude the cable boxes back, right? and the dude was like, dude, are you serious? You the same dude. This is the same cable boxes, right? Right. I imagine that conversation, that skit, that commercial with us, right? So like the cable boxes and the remotes, these are like Wahhabi books, the Lafatulu Sul and all that kind of stuff, all they books, right? So we realize we've been tricked. Man, come take your books back, right? So the Wahhabi Da'i comes, he has Wahhabi on his shirt, right? So yeah, take your books back, right? And then he closes the door, then he peels off Wahhabi and he puts Wahidun right here, right? And then, right, those who call to Allah's oneness, at one time they used to call themselves that, right? So they rings the doorbell again, right? But instead of saying like, yo, you're the same dude that I just gave the boxes to and I recognize as a hustle, we actually believe it. Like, oh, you got me some new books here, thank you, right? So then we read the same books we just had. And wait a minute, that's a trick. Yo, I'm giving your books back. Yo, come pick up your dean. You tricked me, right? So the dude comes back, right? This is all my imagination. The dude comes back, right? He has Muwahidun on his shirt, right? Then we give him back his books, right? Then he closes the door. Then he peels that off and puts Salafi here. Then he rings the doorbell again, right? Here's your book. Oh, Shukran, alhamdulillah, I've been looking for the real Islam. So then that goes on for a while. I'm like, yo, man, I've been tricked again, right? Yo, come get your dean back, right? So now he comes, he has Salafi on his shirt, right? And then we give him the books back. And then now this is the latest table. He takes that off. I thought, right? And then he rings the doorbell again, right? Here. Here's your dean. This the real one this time. And we still like, man, Shukran, alhamdulillah. Yeah, right? This is us. We go for this because we haven't learned properly. Because we're running and hiding from these basic knowledge that we're supposed to have. So all they have to do to us is change the label and we go for it. And we think it's something different. All because we don't know. That's why we insist. Imam Amin, names, who you talking about? No, don't tell us. He says, I'm not telling you the name. Learn the concept properly. The name doesn't matter. So that's all I have to say. Alhamdulillah.
Bismillah. So after listening to all of it, I'm sitting here and as I'm absorbing everything and I'm watching the comments and I got tired, I got drained. This is a lot of work. A lot. You know, the hardest work is teaching us that we haven't been educated properly. That's an education in itself. It's very draining. We have to unlearn. Man, that's work. It's really draining. But let me get my energy back. It's draining.
Yeah, when you start thinking like deeply,
Yeah, no, seriously. I was sitting, I don't know if you can see my face. I'm like,
yeah.
So let's do this another way. I want all of us to write this, copy this. I wish I could put it. I'm not going to do it in Arabic. I'll do the Arabic, but in English writing, so we can all do it. I want all of us to copy that. But I think we're misunderstanding something here. Just copy that word and put it up. And I want you to memorize it. It's called Al-Ulum Al-Shar'iyya.
Don't write the J that he wrote at the end.
What's this?
It's a typo.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sharia.
I didn't see that. I'm sorry. I'll do it
You
again.
writing Persian now?
I told you I'm drained.
Like Hakika too.
All right, there you go. That's all I want. Take the J off. Al-Ulum Al-Shar'iyya. Can everyone copy that? Engage me here. All right. See, I'm so drained, I can't even get the joke, right? No, follow me though. Besides Imam Faheem and Imam Naeem, can y'all tell me what that means? Does anyone know what that means? So Imams, you can't answer. What does that mean? Just the words, what they mean. So everyone's putting that up. But I want you to tell me, what does that mean? Okay. Go ahead. Mm. Mm. Go ahead. Mm. Go ahead. I'm waiting for the right answer. Everyone is incorrect. You are close, but no Wookiee button for you. Right? No one knows? You're close. No, you way off. Not even starting off. I want to see something. I'm saying this for us. Seriously. Come on. It's more almost 100 people here. Someone should know what this means. No one. La ilaha illallah. And I'm not putting us down. This is what my point is why I said we have to be educated. Oh my goodness. We'll never ever develop scholarship if we don't know what that means. I'm going to tell you, I'm just trying to make sure we have it. Okay, good. If we was to translate this, you can say, right? You can say it like that. The sciences, plural, of the sacred law. right? And the reason why I want you to pay this, I didn't see you, Samira. No, you said the study of the Sharia. You didn't say anything about sciences. I see you right here. Right? I was close. I said everybody was close. Everyone was close. That's not good enough. I said close, but no Wookiee button. No, very important. Very important. Why is it very important? Because if we don't learn to look at Islam as a combination of various sciences and knowledges, we'll never understand the deen, which what Imam Naim was indicating to. I'm putting it this way, not to show you. If we don't start to see, the whole picture of Islam and the sciences that make up Islam, we'll never understand the deen. I'm talking about as a collective. So you're never going to produce scholarship, right? Islam is a combination of various sciences, and each science is needed for the totality of the deen. Do y'all follow me? If you leave one of those sciences out, your understanding of the deen is going to be incomplete. Do y'all follow me? Are you following me? It wasn't a trick question, right? If you leave one of those things out, you're going to have a gap in your understanding. That's what has happened to us. Because we don't know Islamic sciences, that is impossible to produce scholarship. Do y'all follow me? Is everyone with me? Are y'all following me? Are you with me? I'm not being sarcastic or trying to got you. No, I want us to think. I want us to think. We had this session on critical thinking. If you leave out Islamic sciences, your deen is going to be incomplete. Follow me. Okay. So now I want to go through some Islamic sciences that are necessary to produce scholarship. Y'all ready? Now we're going to put some things in some categories. I'm going to help us with this, right? In order to start this process, we know there are Islamic sciences. These sciences are sciences of the sacred law, of the Sharia. So we're going to start listing some importance. Number one, we need to know ulum al-Quran, right? We need to know the sciences of the Quran. Because the Quran is the book of revelation. If you don't know these sciences that relate to the Quran, you're going to misunderstand the Quran. You're going to misunderstand the Quran. So we need to learn about the Quran. I had a class the other day, and I was asking the students, they're university students, been Muslim all their life. They didn't know how to navigate the Quran. They didn't know how the Quran was made up. It was comprised. The surahs and the verses and the types of the Quranic verses. They had no idea of none of that. So if that person doesn't understand that, they're not going to extract things properly because they don't know how to navigate the Quran. So inside of ulum al-Quran, the sciences of the Quran, there are two very important sciences that we need to know about the sciences of the Quran. Ilm al-Qira'at and Ilm al-Tafsir. You're going to have to know the science of Quranic recitation, because that science is how we receive the Quran as it is, and sometimes how it's recited indicates varieties of meanings. If you're not aware of that and you recite improperly, you may not get the meaning of revelation. Just different styles of recitation can imply sometimes different meanings, different indication, different layers. You need to know that. So there need to be scholars that are specialized in that area. So some of us have to learn how to recite the Quran properly. And I'm not talking about just tajweed. I'm talking about the different ways the Quran reached us and the different ways of reciting the Quran. We need to learn that. The science of Quranic commentary, ilm al-tafsir, that's a science. What are the ways to interpret the Quran? What are the different types of interpretation of the Quran? And where do we extract those things from? That's a science in and of itself. So sometimes you can have, like we have, people interpreting the Quran that is just way out there. I hear some people talking about they grab the Quran, they're reading the English Quran with no access to the Arabic Quran, the Arabic books of tafsir, no access, that's all, and they're interpreting. And the problem in that interpretation was just if you knew something about the different ways to understand tafsir. Just knowing that alone would have avoided that. But without it, you're going to fall into errors just because of the lack of knowledge of the science of explanation of the Quran. Do y'all follow? Is everyone with me? I'm giving you, and then I'm telling you the why behind some of it. In brief, because this is sciences, so it's study. It's not something you're going to do overnight. But I'm giving you an indication to show you its importance. Added to that, a part of that is knowing the notable experts in the field of the Quranic sciences, so that you know who are authorities in Islam that are recognized authorities, so that you can have them as references. If you have no access to that, there is no way you're going to stick to that historical and global tradition in the Quranic sciences alone we're talking about. So you need to know who are the authorities that have been recognized authorities historically and globally in the Quran and in the various sciences of the Quran. Who are the references that we use? In every field, you have experts, and you should have recourse to the work of those experts. If you leave that out, heresy is on the horizon easily. So, for instance, if we would have known that these sciences, just the Quran, we would have never thought the white man was the blue-eyed devil, because we wouldn't have got that from no classical tafsir. But because all that's wiped out, the sciences are wiped out, stuff that's just insane will become normalized. Do y'all follow? Are y'all with me? So that's just with the Quran. Then you should know the books that are relied upon books, scholars and books, so that we know these books are the sound books in the field. This is what people study. They don't just read any old thing. These are classics in the field, historically and globally. When someone wants to study the Quran, these are the books that the people of Sunnah use. You have to know them. You have to be aware of them, right? No one is going to study the Quran and use Yusuf Ali's Quran or the Noble Quran or Pickthall. No real scholar is going to even read that stuff. Do y'all realize that? No real scholar is going to use it. In fact, most of us, if we read Yusuf Ali's translation and read the whole book, you're going to see he had recourse to those classical books. Had we developed people that could read those books, we would have corrected mistakes in his translation easily. But without that resource, you can't do it. You following my point? Y'all with me? That's Quran. As an example. So, in all of the Quran, you're going to have various types of books that relate to the Quranic sciences. So each area is a field of study within the science itself. Are y'all with me? So, and I could go on and on just about that. So that's the Quran, because that's the source of revelation. So just studying the Quran itself is a whole field of study. So now we're talking about producing scholarship, right? So you go to university. How many of you have been to university, right? Let's get, so we make sure we all. Some of us who studied in a university, regular university, like college, university. You have departments in studying, right? And that department, there's various branches within the department. So if you're in the department of psychology, there's different areas to study in psychology. It's not all the same. There's different branches of psychology that you need to learn. Engineering, there's different types of engineering. Not all engineering is the same. And there are specialists in different parts of the field as a science. Are y'all with me? Everybody with me? Liberal arts has different areas. So likewise, in the Islamic sciences, you have specialization in different fields. So the scholar who's proficient in Qira'at may not know tafsir, right? And the one who's in this may not be specialized in the legal rulings of the Quran. That's somebody else. And there are books different for that than books for that. Do you follow? Y'all follow me? I'm giving you the idea. Okay. So that's with the Quran. And I'm summarizing. This, what I'm talking about itself is a study, right? But I'm summarizing. So next, that's Quran. Obviously, what's next that we should keep in mind? Ulum al-Hadith, the sciences of Hadith. Because Hadith is another source of revelation. The words of the Prophet ﷺ and his actions and his approvals, we have to know about that. That field of Hadith is a science in itself. And it has areas of study that we need specialization in. So, in each area, you're going to need to know the specialists in that area. So you have that science that deals with narration, riwayah, What are the books of riwayah? Who are the scholars in riwayah? Then you have diraya, detailed understanding, explanation. What kind of books are for that? Who are the fields of that? You got different types of things, components that make up the hadith. What about the chains of narration? So what about the narrators, which is a whole field of study, ilm al-rijal. That's a whole field with books and its scholars and its references. Y'all with me? That's just in hadith. Books of just narration, books of commentary. What types of commentary? Who are the specialists in each field? What did they specialize? What types of books? All of that is a part of a science. Now, imagine that's just for the Quran and Sunnah. Then after that, and when I'm saying this, I'm not necessarily saying you're going to learn these things, because this is all specialization. We're talking about producing. So when we go to the world and we're not aware of this, we got a guy, he's talking about he's the Imam, and he's ready to go battle with someone who's been spending years in one field of ulum al-Quran. We're going to get killed. We don't stand a chance. We don't even know the sciences, let alone to be proficient in them, right? Then you can move on to ilm usul ad-din, the science of the foundations of the religion, which is belief. And then learning about that and all of its branches and its details and its scholars and its books and its history, right? Y'all with me? After we learn the knowledge of the belief, then we're going to go into ilm al-fiqh, the science of al-fiqh, and all of its components, and its madhahib, and its schools, and its methodologies, and its scholars. That's another field. And its books, which is a whole. Then ilm al-usul al-fiqh, then the science of the foundations of fiqh. How do we get to legal rulings? That's a whole field of study. And let me stop there just to not, I think you got my point. And I could go up to about 9 of those sciences that are absolutely essential, and there are more. But 9 of them that without it, you don't have scholarship. No such thing. Now, that's what the world is doing while we're learning obligatory knowledge. The world, globally and historically, that's what people are engaged in. When you come to our communities, we're still at the level of trying to get us to learn the obligatory knowledge. That's why people rule over us. And they don't tell us all this stuff. Oh, you got to learn how to pray. Man, you didn't even start. That is a given. You got to learn how to pray. That's when you're a baby, a kid. By the time you mumayyiz, you better know how to pray. Or your parents are sinful. We're not talking about scholarship, learning the rules of prayer, or learning the basics of the belief. Do y'all follow what I mean? The stuff we're talking about is at the 4th grade, we should be finished this stuff. In the beginning of elementary school, this should be done. What we're talking about. Then we should be preparing That's everybody got to know this. There's no excuse. Like you know, it's mandatory. Like, you know, you got to go to grade school and junior high and high school. And then after that you can, but you have to get this one or you're going to get in trouble. That's where we at in knowledge. So when I'm talking about, that's why I said I was getting a headache. I said, oh, we don't get it. Right? We don't get it. And since we don't get it, that's why someone can tell us, oh, follow Quran and Sunnah, that's all you got to do. That's preposterous. You can't tell us that. Just follow Quran and Sunnah, brother. Huh? Do you know what that means? That's impossible. It's like you can't do that. So now our job is to get up to speed. But to get up to speed, we have to know what getting up to speed entails. You follow my point? So I'm giving us this everyone's not going to know all this. But if we don't realize that this needs to be known, we're not going to push the ones who are capable to do it. Do you understand my point? We'll just say, all we need to know is this. And that's what happens, right? We don't realize what it entails to do the job, so we're not going to push and prepare people to actually do the job. That's what we have to do. That's our challenge. Around the world, now let me make it easy for you. You know, when we in school and we see what the Chinese is doing, what the Japanese is doing, the Russians, and all these people, and I'm talking about in secular education, and the teacher would tell you, the students, hey, you better stop playing around. You're in a global economy now. You keep playing around, you're going to be in competition with some Chinese people and some Japanese people and some Koreans who not playing. And that job you think you're going to get is going to be taken. As one brother came to me, Umar, I'm going to give you a plug. He came to visit me Saturday morning from North Jersey. And he's like a foreman in construction. He said the new thing is that companies are hiring Mexicans who know several trades. They're electricians, they're carpenters, they're plumbers, they're sheet metal workers, they could do labor, they could do brick mason. I mean, just giving you various trades. They can do all of that. They hire them as laborers. And whenever they can cut a corner and not hire a subcontractor, they'll use their laborers. And the black guy who just know how to do room and a broom is out of there. Do y'all follow? So a lot of the brothers just want to get a room and a broom and sweep and take out trash. And these Mexicans can do a bunch of stuff. One man can do 4 trades. Move that to Islamic sciences. Around the world, they're training their kids to be specialists in this field and that field. They already know the basic stuff, but now they're specializing in things. And they become our teachers because we didn't do what we need to do. Number one, because people ain't told us. It's not like, I don't think I'm blaming us. We don't have access. And I'm realizing denying us access sometimes is intentional to subjugate us. I know you don't know nothing, but I'm going to make you think you do so that you always have to come to me. You never will build your own. You will always be a subjugated class of people. And it's by design because I'm not going to teach you what you need to know. I'm not even going to make you aware of it. And I'm going to celebrate you at the level of ignorance. Do y'all follow my point? When you already know, And look at it this way. That's what I'm talking about when I say, and we have to build that up ourselves. Since no one is giving it to us, we have to get it and then work our way through it. It's a lot. And not everybody's going to do it. We're not asking it. No one is a specialist in everything. But we need to know there's a base level of knowledge that we all must have. And then from there, we need to start producing among us people who can learn these sciences so that our Islam as a people is complete and whole. One complete system with organized structure. Now we can have our place in the whole world. Trust me, we're not going to do that, us by ourselves. It's going to be a collective effort. But first, we have to have realization. I hope y'all got my point. Am I clear, or did I fly over heads? I hope my point is clear. Y'all follow me? Did you follow me? And I didn't go into detail. I summarized. But I wanted you to get the point. Barakallahu bikum. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry if I took long, but I got rid of my headache. At least I got it.
Okay, how we looking on where we at on the donations? Yeah, so if you came in late, please be sure to make your contribution, inshallah, as we, rounding off the show. We want to try to hit our goal, inshallah. We have 60% capacity, so we need another 40%, inshallah. So please try to make sure that you donate, inshallah. You've gotten a lot here for a very minimum cost, so it should make you eager to give for yourself and someone else, inshallah ta'ala, because that's another aspect of this work, that it costs, it costs. And alhamdulillah, you have people that, are willing to put their time and efforts, and then, it takes away from other things. So, please let's try to be generous, inshallah, and get this done.
Imam Amin mentioned something when he was just speaking, when he gave the analogy of the university, how you have, for example, the engineering department or school, and how not all engineering is the same. And then you have a specialist in each one. And the same with any of the other fields in the so-called secular world. And the point that he was making is that Islam is the same way. And I'm going to just give you one common example that too many of us fall into in Islam by not realizing these things. For example, you have someone who has memorized the Quran. Alhamdulillah. We don't realize, because we've been blocked and denied access, that anybody who's a scholar is already assumed that he memorized the Quran. It's already a given, but we don't understand it. So we think, okay, the person memorized the Quran, most of us, that, okay, this person is a scholar. And because he memorized the Quran, that means he is a scholar in all of the sciences of the Quran. He can teach you, and he knows the ahkam, or the legal rulings of the Quran. He knows the tafsir of the Quran. These different sciences that Imam Amin already mentioned. When he's not, he could just only have simply memorized the Quran. And we're living in the age of deception. A lot of people who claim to memorize the Quran haven't memorized the Quran. They haven't been certified by their teachers. Just to let you know. And so there's a lot of games being played. So you say, oh, he's a Hafiz of Quran. A lot of times they don't be Hafiz of Quran. Maybe they memorize a good portion of it, where they haven't memorized all of it, right? But even if they have, you shouldn't assume that, okay, because he memorized the Quran, that he's an Islamic scholar. He may not even be a Quranic scholar. He just may have memorized the Quran, and that's it. No other sciences. So I just wanted to add that point because I see it happening a lot in our communities. And this is because this thing is like vague to us. It's like a blur. It's like we're looking at Islam through a glass, and our glass is dirty. It got a whole bunch of stuff on it. And we don't even recognize, we think that this stuff is clear. No, we need some Windex. We need to clean this thing off because it's not really clear to us. So I just wanted to make that point. Like, again, when I did that, I think I did it at least twice when I put, Iman, Islam, Ihsan at the top and just gave off about 3 dozen random subjects or topics in Islam. And I've seen people putting stuff in the wrong category. It helped me understand that this thing is not clear to us. It's not clear. And so it's we have to make it clear. And we have to go over and over and over again until it's clear to us. Just like we can understand that you have bodies of knowledge, and each of those bodies of knowledge have branches and sub-branches. It's the same thing with Islam. So Quran, the sciences, the knowledge of the Quran, the sciences connected with the Quran is not just one science, it's a whole gang of sciences. And each science has a subcategory, and just like the same thing with the other branches of knowledge. And so we have to understand that. So that when we're interacting with people, because people will run game on us, people will play on our ignorance, people will size you up and recognize that because they've memorized the Quran, that you think that they're an Islamic scholar, they will let you believe that. And a lot of times they will hustle you. And they keep the hustle going. They'll throw some basic Arabic words at you. And you're like, yeah, he said right. Yeah, he said it in Arabic. Yeah, he shake. You know what he's talking about, right? And so we have to be careful. Yeah, that's the only thing I want to add.
I think one of my most important thing was that is I remember one time Sheikh Samir said something to me because he was like he was sitting in the class I was teaching, and he said, "Why are you telling people all this stuff?" He said, "This is too advanced." I said, "Sheikh, something you're missing. They think they're advanced." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "You have to show them advanced stuff so they will know they're not advanced, so you can teach them what they need to know to prepare for the advanced stuff." He said, "Oh, I see." Right? Our approach is to encourage you to hold your horses, learn well what you need to learn so that you can actually arrive to where you want to be. That's for all of us, right? That's why people don't learn. They think they know.
And also, Imam, I think a lot of people I think also people get it confused, like when you talking about the level of scholarship that we need to produce. I think, and I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. I think a lot of people that are part of our family, I think a lot of them think you are saying that all of us got to learn all that stuff.
I hope y'all didn't gather that, did y'all? I said no. Oh, no. Imam, I got to crack a joke with you, right? Remember you was the other night, you was like, someone be like talking about the knowledge and you telling them, and they be like, okay, so where can I find someone to teach me that? And you be like, yo, I'm talking to you right now. That happened to me the other day.
SubhanAllah.
I have the books in front of me, teaching. They're like, well, where can I learn this at? There's the books right in front of you. You had a book right in your. I told you to buy the book. We're actually going to do it. I'm telling you. Oh, that's Mary's boy. You can't teach me. No. Listen. Everyone's not going to the university, but we need a university. Everyone's not going to be an electrician, but we need electricians. Everyone's not going to be a carpenter, but we need carpenters. Everyone is not going to have a grocery store, but we need grocery stores. Everyone is not going to clean the streets, but we need street sweepers, right? Do y'all follow my point? So individually, you may not be an expert, but you do need an expert. What if no one learned medicine and we get sick? We all in trouble. No one knows medicine. No doctors, no nurses, no pharmacists. Just imagine everybody's going to be playing doctor and nurse and pharmacist. So you go to the pharmacy, the guy has no training. He's just giving whatever he likes of the medicine. Can you imagine that? You imagine going to the pharmacy? The doctor who you go to is not a real doctor. It gives you a prescription. You go to the pharmacist is not a real pharmacist, and he's going to dish you the medicine. Would any of you accept? That's what we're doing with Islam. That's what we're doing in the religion. We're doing the same thing. I'm just giving you an analogy. It's insane when you think about the dunya, right? The guy who builds your house is not a carpenter. No engineer was involved. No electrician professionals. No plumber. That's your house. And that's what you're going to move into. That joint might fall on your head. You turn on the light, you might get blown up. You turn on the water, you might flood your whole house. You don't act like that, but we act like that in religion. And my point is, we have no expertise, right? We don't even think about expertise, and everyone's playing expert. I read in the Quran, the Prophet ﷺ said, are you sure the Prophet said that? Are you sure that's even a hadith? Right? We don't even know the books of hadith. We don't have no idea what the scholars said about it, what the experts in the field said about it. That's not even available. I'm not talking about somebody knows and I just don't. In our communities, that's not available. The whole professionalism and expertise is shot out the window. And someone replaced it, told us everyone can do it. That's my point. So when we all realize, hey, there's some basic things we need to know. And then once we all know the basics, we know what we have to know. Then there is levels that we need to push each other to get there because we need it as a collective. Do you follow my point? That's why the guy come in and swindle us all the time, because nobody knows, right? It's easy for the guy, I'm Sheikh, and swindle everybody because nobody knows. We can't keep going on like that. We have to change that narrative. Even if I'm not an expert, I know what an expert must know. I know what some ideas you need in the field. Do you understand my point? That's the only point I'm making. But in order to know that, we have to know our basics. But because we're busy acting like professionals, we're not even learning our basics properly. The whole system is shot. And that's what we have to fix. Listen, Islam been, okay, y'all heard the class, right? Y'all heard the talk. I'm going to show you something. How long has Islam, Sunni Islam, been in the African American community that we know of from our minds? Just whatever it may be, just give me some numbers. That real Sunni, we've been Sunnis in the African American community, the black community, right? How many years?
Do you mean like an individual here or there, or like groups of us?
Individuals, groups, I don't care, whatever. How long you think we've been Sunni Muslim? Whatever, just give me your idea. I'm not saying right or wrong, just what you think. 100 years? I would agree with that. We've been talking about Sunnis for 100 years in the black community, right? More than 50 years, right? Because the Nation of Islam been around since the 30s, and there was Sunni Muslims in the 30s that wouldn't follow the nation, right? Right? Now I'm going to reverse the question. We just talk about the sciences, right? We talked about some. We talked about Hadith sciences, Quran sciences. In the black community, in 100 years, tell me our experts in Hadith sciences, in Ilm al-Rijal, right? In Qira'at, in Ilm al-Tafsir, in I'rab al-Quran, right? All these different, in Diraya of Hadith, where are specialists? 100 years, tell me them. I'm talking about black, African-American specialists. You see that answer? I'm being honest. I'm not being sarcastic. I want us to think. Listen, I'm not trying to make us hopeless. I'm trying to say, hey, we missing. We got to get busy. 100 years. Tell me someone that we should have 100 years. You have generations of scholarship after 100 years, 200 years in a lot of countries. Where they at? We should celebrate them, right? Do you understand my point? We have to change that. We shouldn't say that 100 years from now. But if we keep doing the same thing, we're going to say the same thing, right? That's the point. Because we should be able to say we have our real scholars, and we should say what they're professionals in. Right? We want to change that narrative. That's my point. But in order to change it, we have to know what we have to do. That's the point. Right? It's not to it's not so if the same game is played on us, then the same result is going to happen. But if we learn to change the game, change the narrative, now we raise the bar and we work together collectively, then absurdity can't reach us. It's going to be much more difficult. I'll give you a story that happened in our masjid to give you the example of what I'm talking about. You know, it's the automatically assumption. People come in and they're going to be in charge in the black masjid. These blacks don't know anything. That's just the given, right? So the guy walks in, these young Pakistani kids, I'll never forget it. Pakistani, Bengali, right? They walk in the masjid. Hey, brother. This is the funniest thing I ever heard.
Brother.
Right? Yeah, right? So they walked in the masjid. They said, we got the Sheikh of Hadith with us. Hadith, Sheikh of Hadith. So they bring this guy in, young guy. He got his turban on. He's right, nice and dressed. And you know what they saying when they said that, right? What was implied? Okay, black guy, go sit down in the shake.
We here, we got this. Go to the back of the
Go
Masjid.
sit
Back
down,
of
we're
the
gonna give
bus.
you some lessons here. So I said, you Sheikh al-Hadith? And he actually said, yeah. I kid you not, I'm not joking. He said, yes, I am Sheikh in Hadith. I said, really? I said, mashallah, where did you learn Hadith? Oh, and I study in this, and I study in this Darul Uloom, and this, and blah, 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 blah. I said, really? Sheikh al-Hadith? I mean, you learn Hadith? He said, no, I Sheikh of Hadith. I said, tell me the first Hadith in al-Bukhari with its chain of narration. The first Hadith. He looked at me. His eyes got like this big. The fact that I asked him that question shocked him. He's like, whoa. It was a simple question. You Sheikh Hadith, automatically you should know the first Hadith in the Bukhari with its chain of narration. This is, no, because it's a good story, Faheem. It's my point. He said, he looked at me, his eyes was like huge. He couldn't answer. So I said, it's the first Hadith in the Bukhari. You should know this Sheikh al-Hadith. Come on, I mean, this is a given. Nothing. So I recited it to him. He looked at me. He said, Sheikh, where did you learn that from? You can't make this stuff up. But I'm just making the point. I wasn't trying to embarrass him. I was trying to show us that we got to stop this stuff. Come on, bro. Because guess what? We would have just sat down, turned over the keys to the masjid. The sheikh is here, right? Come on, this guy is. Oh, he said, oh, we didn't learn like that. Oh, you mean you was just reading books and no memorization, no, just read. Yeah, that's what we did, And, our last, I said, okay, that's what I thought. I said, just say you study some hadith. Don't say you Sheikh al-Hadith. But this is what happens. And this is a real story. I'm not making it up. Had we been just not knowing some basic stuff, man, we would have been taken over. And guess what? And I swear I wasn't trying to embarrass him. That wasn't the point. The point was to show that no. This thing is a little bit bigger than that. And no, come on, man, work with us. You don't got to come try to take us over. Right? That was the point. Because they had no idea that we knew anything about scholarship. That's a given. It's blacks. They don't know scholarship. Nothing. Right? Not expecting. Right? But guess what? In all the sciences, we have to have familiar, and that's only familiarity. That's not saying you anybody. That's just being familiar with what is necessary to know. Right? Because anybody gonna tell you anything. Right? And remember, our teachers told us, as we learned before, the chain of narration is a part of the religion. Without it, anyone can say whatever they want. But when you say, from whom do you relate, then it's going to be a different story, right? I'll tell you one more story of real experts. We were studying al-Bukhari. Sheikh Samir, one Azhari cap guy, was criticizing al-Bukhari. So before we started the Sahih Bukhari, Sheikh Samir played a video of this guy, a clip. He said, it was like a 7-minute clip. He said, in 7 minutes, I counted over 10 mistakes in Hadith's knowledge, in the science of Hadith. In a 10-minute clip, 7-minute clip, I counted 10 mistakes, and I was being generous. Right? He said, imagine if I would have played the whole thing. Because he's an expert. He's familiar what it takes to be an expert. But in his country, they're going to be able to protect. Who's going to protect our neighborhoods? Who's going to protect our Masjid? Who's going to protect our future generations if we don't do it? When people already come, given that they're going to be in charge automatically, because I know and you don't. And know how I know you don't know? Because I didn't teach you. So that we're talking about a visitor. What about the one who's not telling us? Do y'all follow my point? That's my only point. And when we go from stage to stage, certain things are going to be easy. When we finish this book and this level, and we learn the different sciences at the basic level and then grow, and then we build our community. Now, 100 years later, we got a few scholars that these are our references. Right? That's what we're talking about. And everyone does that. Why shouldn't we do the same? Why must we always settle to be a servant class? We shouldn't settle for that. And if that's our plight at this stage, we should learn enough so it's not our children's plight or our grandchildren's plight. So think long term. And then when we think of it in that sense, it looks different. Because we're still talking about having an Islamic school, but in our Islamic school, right, none of this stuff is even in the curriculum. Because our Islamic curriculum in our Islamic schools is given us by the colonizers who are not telling us everything. That's good enough for you. Right there, stop. While their schools are advanced. And this in no way is to discourage us, it's to wake us up. Because I don't want you to ever think right? I don't want you to ever think, I personally, my personal belief, that all this stuff is intentional. I think people don't want us to know because it benefits them for us not to know. That's my personal opinion, and I could be totally wrong, but I think I'm right. I have enough experience in engaging that I think I'm right. I think I'm right. And with 100 years of experience, I think we should have got that email by now. I know there's snail mail, but it ain't that damn slow. I think we should have got it. Right. Go ahead. So that's my point. Is my point clear? I hope no one misunderstood me. All of this was why I was talking about that. Something else happened to me that really triggered me with this issue, but I won't go into that. But I know people will let us die and say, the heck with you. I do know that. They will let us die. If we're not willing to serve, die.
Can you tell us why you're not going to get into it?
It hurts too much, honestly. When you realize you've been duped, it could be quite depressing. You know, my wife said to me one time, she was studying history in the university, And she told me that her teacher said to her, her professor, I guess he was African, he said, or she said, I think it was he said, be careful when you learn about the truth, it'll make you bitter. Be careful when you learn truth, it can make you bitter. So learning the truth, you have to learn how to process it too, so you don't become bitter and hateful and angry. Because learning the truth, when you feel like somebody pulled the numbers on you, you get mad. You want to knock somebody out, right? So when I see that, it disturbs me. A lot of my friends who know me and study, they be like, what happened to you? Why are you so radical? I be like, man, I see what's happening, and it ain't cute. Ignorance ain't bliss, right? You pulling the wool over my eyes, and you got my people all jacked up, and it ain't gonna change. And it's fine with you that my people's in a second-class status and they Muslims, and you happy with that. That stuff don't sit right with me. While they kiss your hand, and you build big schools, giant schools, and masjids all over the country, and build your education, and we suffer. Man, I ain't feeling that. See, now you get me upset, right? It hurts, honestly, it hurts. As Muslims, we shouldn't be that way, but it's our reality. It happening. Muslims should never treat Muslims like that, no matter where they're from. But it is what it is. Now we got to do something about it, right?
Truth will make you bitter. I agree if you don't process it right.
Right.
Like the fact that the truth that we only raised $350 so far tonight. Like remember when Dr. Uboy Johnson was raising that money for his school, and he called black people a bunch of trifling N-words, right? The truth made him bitter.
So we cannot be bitter. We have to be better. We cannot be bitter. We have to be better. Right? No, seriously. Right? We learned about the atrocities of slavery. We can't just get mad. We got to do something. We got to make sure we're not in that position again. Right? So we learned that they've been giving us half-truths and bootleg version of Islam. We have to learn true Islam and teach it. And that's why we have to be a little bit harsh to people who keep trying to pull the wool over our eyes. Right?
Would you all allow me to ask our family a couple of questions?
Sure, we got a few minutes. We got to get out of here.
Can you all entertain me for a minute? I would. My question to you all is, what madhab, what school in fiqh do you follow?
Shafi'i up in this place. Now, let me start.
Just type it in for me. I'm going
someplace.
someplace.
Come on, Shafi'is, show your face.
I'm going someplace.
Oh, bold.
SOE, man. Shafi over everything.
Shafi'i.
When you all type that in, I have a follow-up question. Maliki's in the building. See, that's what I'm talking about right there. Look at all that. Maliki. See, this is what I'm talking about. Y'all doing all that rah-rah Shafi'ing, right? And the Malikis is in the building. Look at all that.
Malikis come out to play,
I bet you we have a Maliki test that really authorities.
I have a follow-up question, y'all, so get ready to answer. Now, my follow-up question to all of you that answered, which basic book in your school did you finish with the teacher?
Oh, Shafi'is remain silent. Come on, Malikis, come out to play.
'Hey. Stop. No, this is a serious question. You don't have to say what teacher and all that stuff. Name the basic book that you finished with the teacher in the school that you just mentioned.
Uh-oh, here we go. I want to say something to you, right? Go ahead. Listen to these answers, Naeem, and this is
I'm watching.
Look at the answers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Oh, this is very interesting. Go ahead. Your Malikis are not answering, Habibi.
They answered.
But look at the answers.
Uh-huh.
Precisely my point, right or wrong.
Mm-hmm. This is why I asked the question.
Wow. Wow. But that's why I say we got work to do collectively.
So
look at the text.
Yeah. What?
They're not teaching us. Now you go ask any other Maliki around the world and see what they answer. You see what's happening to us?
Mm-hmm.
We have to fix this stuff.
So a lot of times we have this discussion and a lot of us get frustrated and we think that people is putting us down, and we're not trying to put us down. I'm trying to show you where we at and what to do next. So this is something you can do. This is part of the action cure, right? The action cure is, and it's even for those of you who didn't answer, right? And some of y'all are mentioning books that are not dealing with fiqh, right? I asked, my question was very specific. What school of fiqh or what madhab of fiqh do you follow? And what basic book in that school did you learn with the teacher? That was the question. So my follow-up instructions are to, in whatever school that you're following. Now, if you didn't mention, maybe some of you are quiet, you didn't follow a school. You're not following the school yet, or you're not sure. Well, you need to choose one. And for example, I'm just using him as our example. If Imam Amin is your teacher, then you're Shafi. Stop playing, right? And learn one of those basic books with him, right? Likewise. So my point is, you have a school. Okay. Next thing to do, learn a basic book in that school with a teacher. Say, for example, you can't get to the teacher right away, right? Read the book on your own. Don't try to teach it to nobody. Understand that you really don't understand, right? Get your beak wet. And then as soon as possible, study that book with a teacher. In other words, when you learn, you're not going to just read the book one time and study it one time. You're going to go over and over and over again. So, okay, right now, this moment, you don't have a teacher or you don't have access to the teacher. Okay, read the book. Also, I know for us, when we've taught some of these basic books that you mentioned, those classes are still on YouTube and Facebook.
Yes.
You can really go through the book. Even if you weren't with us then, you can have the book and you can watch the videos. I know we have them organized on playlists on our YouTube channel. You can literally go through every class until you can sit in a live class with a live teacher. This is what we can do, and we shouldn't skip that. You can't skip that. because all of the other stuff we were talking is irrelevant if you're trying to skip that. And trust me, too many of us are trying to skip it. That's why I mentioned earlier, nowhere to run to, nowhere to hide. A lot of us are running and hiding.
And here's an underlining answer to why the situation is what we're seeing. Right there.
Yeah.
This is one of the most beautiful things, to be honest. I was a recovering Wahhabi. I was default Wahhabi, and fiqh was irrelevant. So I didn't have the chance to learn. And the point that I was making is that all these books that we were talking about, Maliki, most of these books are in ibadat. They don't cover the religion. They cover just your personal acts of worship. And the ones that went to a next level had to be taught because they're in poems, and poems are most difficult to understand, right? So the ones that we saw put up a little level, like, is a poem. And poems really need explanations because they're they're concise for rhyming. So their details are not clear. It needs explanation. So very rarely even fiqh as to our whole scope of Islamic law, they ain't even telling us. They keep us in the bathroom.
Like, to go to your point, like in a Maliki school, right? One of the basic books that some of y'all mentioned, and we taught it, is the Akhdari. That stops at Salat. It doesn't even give all the details of Salat, because we have to understand these books are children's books. These are things that children learn. So they're not really, they're not doing anything else. These are books that children are learning when they're children. The Ashmawiyah stops at fasting, right? And so these are things, and again, I'm not saying it to blame us, is that we should have had as children. Some of us weren't even Muslim as children. It's not our fault, right? We were denied access, right? But then, like Imam Amin said, the next level, like in the Maliki school, maybe you talking about a book like the Izziyah that covers more than Ibadah. It covers marriage and things like this. And a lot of us didn't even mention those books, but we're still getting married and we don't know the rules of marriage. We're going into business. We don't know the rules of business.
And we'll say I follow a madhab that I didn't learn the rules, and then avoid where there's a teacher for the other madhab where we need to learn the rules. But now I'm Shafi'i. I didn't learn, but I'm Shafi'i. So no, you need to be Hanafi. You need to follow the rules. You need to be Maliki in this. You need to. So what the point is that because we don't know the curriculums, because we have to start putting that together to produce our own scholarship. In every school, we need to have it where the curriculum of books, the studies, the classics, the scholars are taught regularly in our communities. It's a regular thing. It's not something strange. We have to do it. With that in regard, I'm going to do the Shafi'i school coming up, besides what we already did. But I'm going to do it at another level, right? So that, and so these sciences, that it becomes normal, you're familiar with stuff. I'm telling you, I believe the biggest thing is that we don't know and nobody's going to tell us. If we don't tell ourselves and then point to directions, no one's going to tell us. They're going to keep it that way. It works for them. It's nice that we don't know. We have to change that narrative. May Allah help us. Okay, we got to get ready to go for Maghrib. But this is just a wake-up call. Now, when you attend the classes, you got to dig in and grab all that information, because we're not just telling you something going to leave you on a cliffhanger. No, we're going to actually share this stuff with you. You following us, we're going to teach you. We're going to help you. And then when you exhaust what we have, go to the next level. And we're going to point it to you. It's no longer just like, nah, you don't know. No, we're going to teach you to the level we can teach you. and then we're going to point you to the next direction. And we're going to bring in teachers like we've been doing. Y'all follow my point? That's this whole thing. I was hoping to wake us up in this issue. Did we accomplish it? Did we reach our objective? I ain't talking about the money. I'm talking about to get you to understand why we need to develop our own scholarship, why we need circles of knowledge. I know it's not the conventional, humble way of doing everything, but did it wake us up? I hope it did. I hope you didn't misunderstand our intent. I hope you followed and you got the point. All right, Imam, who's going to close us out? Who's going to the store?
I did the grand opening.
I think Sister Haja Stacy had a question for you. I put it in the private chat.
Let me see. Oh, I saw that. So for us, we need to start with the basic sciences. We need the science of Aqidah at the obligatory level to really understand it. We need the science of al-fiqh at an elementary level first. And we need the science of at-tasawwuf. At the first level, we need to master the books at the first level. In every school, there are beginner books. Sometimes there's a series of them, and they are. You should study all of them with your teacher, right? Then when you finish that, you go to an intermediate level, and you study the books at the intermediate level. Then, at the intermediate level, you're good as an individual, and even in your local community. But somebody got to be pushed to the advanced level, because at the advanced level, when we got issues, we need someone who can handle our issues. You're not going to get that except at the advanced level and then the level of scholar. The advanced level is not scholar. The advanced level is on your way to scholarship. Then above that is the scholarly level. We need to go to those two. So the first two levels, everybody should have. The beginning level and the intermediate level. The intermediate level is to give you time to learn things so you're not just crammed with a bunch of information. So you have beginner level, stages. Then you go to the intermediate level. The intermediate level, none of us should be satisfied that we didn't study to the intermediate level. Then the advanced level, because now we're talking about our lives, right? And situations we get in. That's in advanced books. Then we need, for us, the scholarly level, who's going to give legal rulings and judgments to contemporary issues and situations, who's able to give legal verdicts. That's another level. There's levels to this, right? So, and that's in each field, in every science. So we're going to start with those basic science because they're the primary sciences. Then we start learning the sciences of the Quran, science of hadith, science of Arabic language, science of seerah, fiqh, different stuff. And that's going to make that level of scholarship and learned people, which we must have in our communities. You know, the rule is, if you don't have a scholar who can answer the people's issues in every, say, town that is a distance of shortening the prayers, everybody in that town is sinful. Think about that. We go through a whole country with no scholars, right? No, a whole city, a whole town, a whole state. Nah, we have to fix that. That's not cool. Imagine living in a state and there's no doctor in the whole state, or a city and there's no doctor in the city, not one. Can you imagine? You would move, right? We get upset if it ain't a grocery store. We talking about that's food. We don't have teachers. It's in our masjids where none of this stuff is taught, and we satisfied with that. Okay, I'm good. May Allah reward you all. Lastly, we have to go. Coming up, the beginning of the month, the Black Imams Roundtable is coming to Washington, D.C., Friday the 4th and Saturday the 5th. The flyer is on the website. We will be in Washington, D.C. At Masjid al-Islam, and the program is there. So those who can make it, you are welcome. Those who want to travel, if you saw the gathering in Pittsburgh, so we'll be in Washington, D.C. I don't know, Nail. I don't know who's the Imam there. We've been invited, but who's the Imam? I don't know. Inshallah.
Imam Amin, Imam Faheem, that picture on the flyer. How old was you when you took that picture?
I was 46. That was 2017.
MashaAllah. So let us, Imam Naeem, close us out.
Alhamdulillah. So before we get out of here, you'll all have your marching orders, right? School of thought, book in that school of thought with the teacher. And if you don't have access to the teacher right away, you know how to prepare yourself so that when you get to the teacher, you will have at least some loose familiarity with the book. I know on our channel, when we taught Maliki fiqh, is clearly labeled. I'm thinking about Sister Haja Stacy's comment. It's clearly labeled fiqh or Maliki fiqh. And we taught it from two books, the basic ibadah from the Akhdari and Umdatu Bayan, two different books on our channel. And when we taught Aqidah, it was clearly labeled Aqidah. We taught that from Usuluddin and also Umdatu Bayan. And so that's that. So you know what to do. Book, trustworthy teacher, repeat. Alhamdulillah. So that's the basics, and we all have to do that anyway. So Rabbana zidna ilma. May Allah increase us in knowledge. May Allah bless us and give us tawfiq to have sincere intentions as we go forward. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us to pass on what we've acquired to our near ones and our children, and make our children better than us, and throw off the yoke of Wahhabism from the neck of our people by means of our teaching, and our children's efforts. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wastaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk wa ala innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihati wa tawassaw bil haqq wa tawassaw bis sabr. Al-Fatiha.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.